Hello, my name is Carlton, also known as Unknown Christie. I am an expressionist abstract artist, also an illustrator, and I really am passionate about my art and I'm very passionate about life. In my youth, I made a lot of comic books, and in my later stages of life, I've started to experiment more with expression and abstracts, and just basic abstract paintings. Uh, they're based on the prenatal and post-humorous experience, which guides the midlife, and within that guide of the midlife, from the process, the process of birth and death, and to getting out of that which is born and dies to going into the supreme consciousness, which is the world of the unborn. Inside of that process of non-duality, I've learned a lot of foundations of humility, which has allowed me to express and extricate from reality and to be able to hit the medium of art as the void and to abstract from that void a deeper sense of connectivity uh, through artistic expression. As a youth, um, the superpowers of comic book characters, and the psychic ability of those comic book characters more so than any other type of superpower I was really connected to. It drew me to a more love and desire for a life that is connected to, um, I would say, enlightenment and also to maintaining those energies for myself ritualistically. And that is shown in the progression of drawing more realistic characteristics to turning myself over to the abstract expression world. Uh, and these three pieces sort of, they hint at that reality, whereas this piece, which is called Say What, which is about, proper articulation and also silence being stronger than anything that you can really say, because in silence is the understanding of the primordial state of being. It's also, this one is called The Suitcase Man, which gets a whole lot more abstract in a sense of its art, which is about light and water flowing uh, through the motions and movements of our lives, from being born, water breaking, and then dying and turning into the soil itself. Whereas a suitcase man is sort of an allusion to, like, carrying the soul in a suitcase. Where this one deals with, old age and also experience, but it's called alms, and that's an essential part of a lot of the mystic journeys in which I have been a part of, whether it's Christian mystics or Zazen Buddhist. Um, the understanding of, like the contradictions of maybe some people not really understanding your plight or your travail should not, like, like deter you from still going on that journey. And these three artworks symbolize sort of like realism or extracted in expressionism, and also like to simplistic abstractions, and those simplistic abstractions show more of I guess, um, a way in which to communicate with, the viewer or someone who's viewing the pieces, to be able to, get something out of themselves, regardless if they just like the colors and like the scriggly lines, or if they can see the manifestation of what is being translated via, just looking at a piece or understanding why it's titled in a certain way. But most importantly, like, to become raw, to become naked, to be extremely nude with inside and outside of the frames, to express the labor of life and enjoying yourself with like a higher sense of platitude and like a also a gratitude for the ability to communicate. Some of the first communications of what we would call art, which is the cave painting, maps, or symbolisms, symbols of healing like mudra, or like like rune systems that help you with direction and finding a compass in life. That's the power of art to me, and that is where my art is going in the direction of. And it's delightful to be a part of that process, and to be uh, constantly captivated by the will of birth and death, but also to have experience being outside of that will, and to come back into from supreme intelligence to like being like a dull rock. It's it all can be captured, and all can be put together in your expression and how you deliver yourself in art. And everything that I've ever experienced has become like that very much symbolistic in my art, whether it's wartime or whether it's having an isopod aquarium. Those things have been extremely profound and impactful to see life and death pass through, like the aura or the force fields of your life. And to have the ability to translate that so others can communicate in a like soundness is truly profound, and it's a gift, and I appreciate that gift. And I want to continue to share in that sense and in that reality my appreciation for art. And even if in my mind I wrestle with the meaning of what that is, um, it's just good to have the ability to speak onto clarity, like a reality that's been born and that shall die, but a consciousness that shall inhabit forever.
My name is Myra. I am a mixed media artist. I do art because it is therapeutic and it helps me express myself in ways that I normally couldn't verbally. So, what is the earliest memory that shaped my artistic voice? I think it was my brother when he was 7 years old. Back then, they had, well, I was 7. He was 7 or I was 7, one or the other. There was a little book that came out, and there was a turtle in the back, and if you drew it and you turned in your drawing, you were a chance to get art, to become an artist. And he did it. He did an excellent job, and I thought, wow, I was amazed by that. And then I put that kind of stuff off for a long time, and then I started doing crafts more than doing art, gluing and stuff. That's where I got into the mixed media stuff, gluing this to that and making things out of boxes and whatever I could find. And then I came to Redline and started doing more art, and I started incorporating more of my stuff together. How do you describe the core of your art without mentioning medium or technique? I think my art is based on how I I feel on the inside, how I would like to share my expression on the outside, visually, and then I want other people to see how I like to use my practice. For example, I like to do different things in different settings, um, and be amongst people in a group, so that way there's more people can see the type of art that I'm doing. Um, I think the part that makes it feel more like a ritual is when I have to produce art on a time schedule. Like I have to hurry and get it done. I have to remember how I set up, how I get it recorded, how I document it. I think that's more of a ritual than any other of the practices. But I know documentation with doing the art is important. But I do like just sitting down, doing art, not thinking about it, having something playing in the background so I can just zone in and do my art. I think the questions that my art is trying to answer is that there's more to art than just the way you're treated, or the way you're um, the stereotypes of art, or the way people view art. I think art is more about what you can use, how you use it, and how you put it together, and that can be art. So there's no specific way to get specific types of things to use, or to put in your art, or where the settings or where you create your art. I think all different types of things is art: sewing, writing, poetry. Um, as well as the typical things that people think of when it comes to doing art. I think all of that is part of art. Um, I think my art doesn't disrupt, but a lot of art will disrupt somebody's train of thought. I've been working towards trying to do that kind of stuff, but I'm not quite there. But I know more importantly, I think art is something that heals. It heals people because they are able to express any emotion that they want in their art and not have to be restricted to how it's presented. As long as you don't have to, you're not required to show it. Then it's not going to restrict you with your emotions. But I don't care about my emotions being in my art or having it heal me and showing that my vulnerability of my art. And sometimes it awakens a new part of you that you don't know that you have. For example, I didn't know that I could do more geometric type of art, and how that made me think about different ways I can incorporate, the type of stuff, mediums I prefer mixed with geometric art. So I think it awakens a lot of different parts of you that have been dormant due to suppression, reconditioning, and ancestral, I want to say trauma. Um, well, as far as my heritage or lived experience, it's showing up into my art. My lived experience, I've done a couple pieces based on homelessness and the struggles that's been out there. A couple of those pieces are out there. I did some art on my substance use background. That is part of my lived experience as well. And that art is displayed at a location where I have a meeting, which I am so thankful to be able to have that art there. And it wasn't just me doing the, I did the art, but everybody, it was informed by the people around me, just like the art that's just based on being unhoused was informed about the process of when I was unhoused and the struggles I went through while I was there. Um, as for, I don't think it's like intentionally meant to make people like upset or angry about what I'm doing. It's more about letting people see art for what it is and seeing how it can take you into a different mindset and rethink how you look at the world, as well how you look at people and how you treat them. I think more than anything, I think there's different types of stories that I've heard and thought about, and traditions that I thought about that has influenced my art. But more than anything, it's people's art. There's a person that was here that I met when I was unhoused, and I would see them with art. And I thought, wow, what are you doing in this unhoused location? Why are you making art there? Why aren't you out there, showing your art like a professional? And then I thought about they just like being in community. They liked sharing their art that way. They didn't care about if they got famous or not. And then I thought, wow, that's something that makes me want to do art and share it in a community with the community and with people around me. And then if someone wants to buy my art, that's great. But art is more of a way of expressing myself, and I want more people to be able to see it. So I think that's one of the stories. I found out when I was 16 that the art that had been on our wall in our house for years was my dad's art. I didn't even know my dad could create art. It made me think that it's deep in our history, and so as our family, and so everybody except for my sister and my mom are artists. My niece, both of my daughters are, both of my nephews do art, and it makes me feel like even my niece, my young, and she's the youngest, she loves art, and she's got this great mind. So I feel like we were all artists in our own way, with different, different mediums, different things that we like to do. For the most part, we all like our art. And I just want to end this to talk about what I want my art to do. I want my art to inspire people to want to do art, whether it's for healing, whether it's for just sharing with others, or it's just to do in a community. I want my art to empower people to want to do art, whether it's in the form of writing, acrylics, or sketching, or dance, just as long as someone's doing art and it makes them feel good. And hopefully this is a deep dive into me, but you can always reach out to me if you have more questions about what I do.
I think the earliest memory that I have as an artist that shaped my artistic sort of mind is the painting that was around when I was a small infant in the household I grew up in. It was a Van Gogh piece. If anybody knows of the flower pieces, it's the most well-known one. I can't think of the name of it. I don't think I've ever learned the name of it, but if I have, I've looked at it, but I don't really know what the name is. But it was the Van Gogh flowers piece that was print, a small frame in the bathroom that I used all the time, living in that house of like 3 people, and like, shared room with my brother at the time, and it was that sort of household where it's not really, a functional one. And I had to say goodbye to, the family that necessarily isn't family at all. So we lived in a small house near the Ruby Hill district in Colorado. I don't know if that's not the name of the district, but that's where it's kind of sort of located. And we lived in a small house. It was rent-based, and she was a single parent, and there was also another one. And they're both involved, but it was mainly her that took care of both of us. And we weren't very fortunate, but there wasn't the sound of, fireworks there wasn't the sound of gunshots every so often or whatever. But there have been a few cases in that neighborhood. It's not really a good one, but seeing that painting in the place where, you kind of struggle more when it's not really a kept together family. It's kind of like affected by what not affording things could actually do. It seems like, if it was ever like a fictional thing, but it wasn't even a kept together family in a poor situation. It was kind of a really bad situation for me. And growing up seeing that, I didn't really understand anything about it. I just sort of, ended up being a painter, so to speak, like later on. Like, I would watch a cartoon, I would not really fantasize about a painting, not to say none the least, but there's something about it whenever I looked at it, it was the colors of it, it was the shape of it within a painting that really, made its remark that it wasn't actually something of a tile in a bathroom, but like something like way different, but on a sheet of paper. And, from seeing that, it really changed my world of, how I just look over things and don't really see things for the importance that they have in my world, as well as, the world, so to speak, just the world altogether. I could just really overlook something. It could be in a bathroom that's so foreign to me. But it can really seem like, if I've learned it all along after I've realized what this thing is. And that sort of kept secret of that Van Gogh painting kind of helps me out a little bit in understanding, what I could do as a painter and what I could do in my life. Seeing something that is also undermined, underlooked, just as the people in the faces in the same family, and never really get to see how human they are. I think a question that my art keeps trying to answer is knowingness, and trying to understand, just after your existence has been wiped out, if it's ever that you're mistreated or misguided or have mistreated yourself, your existence nonetheless, something that has a purpose for a purpose is, the reason why something might get harmed, is that there's a reason nonetheless that is something that, a misconception could never really potentially clone. It's only one thing that remains if it's being described in context as like an existence. So I guess like the answer of what I'm trying to come up with my painting when it's trying to answer something and figurative expressionism is to fit, but also to mold a snail shell, if you will, uh, so that it sort of seems as though it was never a vestibular structure inside your body. When you can not use the whale hips that you have, but use the shell that you've never even had before, and to fit sort of the figurative expressionism, any sort of description or any sort of thing you've applied your mind onto in the best of ways, because it can't be your mind particularly all alone without, something that may even advance it, but something different nonetheless. So all that you can do with a shell that is foreign to you as you exist and survive, using and molding the words that are provided already for you. So that's why I try to answer is just the uniqueness of the existence of answer itself. I think I already answered this, but I hope that it heals, awakens, and the other thing, the ability to just understand that, you can do something and not be required to do so. And hopefully you're able to do something, because I really enjoy painting. I really enjoy music. I really enjoy film. And painting has always been something I'd like to say from this day, if it's for now on, something I enjoy the most. I don't really enjoy the vocal thing that I can do, or the camera thing that I can do, if it's not really the most challenging thing out of all the things that I could do. So I really enjoy the painting thing. I hope that it awakens the ability to understand but not require others to paint, because it all means that if you can, you're not required, you're able to, and that you do that, because in my book, they're all painters.